I'm Mayank Mansingh Kaul. I'm a New Delhi-based curator, independent curator, with a specialization in post-colonial histories of textiles in India. In 2016 and 2017, I actually was invited by the French Embassy in India to do a series of research trips to look at collections of Indian textiles in France, as well as to understand the contemporary ecology of handmade textiles and hand patterned textiles in France. And so therefore, when this project was conceived, the French Embassy in India invited me to consider being the curatorial lead on this project. I think what it means for me as an Indian today, like I introduced earlier, Indians of my generation are often very conscious that we are seen through very stereotypical ways, especially with regards to craft and textiles. So often, stereotypical ideas of India associated with Bollywood or the Maharaja legacy or yoga, Kama Sutra, tandoori food. While all of these are integral part of the Indian experience and also define who we are, I felt that this was an opportunity to actually challenge and present another aspect of India outside of these stereotypes. So a lot of what we have presented are actually individual and collective representations of artistic practices in India in conversation with artistic practices in France. Of course, like you mentioned, India has an extraordinary diversity of textiles, both through its geography, its different kinds of communities, different kinds of practices. What's interesting for me is that in Indian languages, often we come back to the word kala. The word kala means very simply art, but it is something which is applied to what is considered design or craft and art. And in that sense, to look at textiles as kala, which transcends all of these different definitions and hierarchies, is really important and the main idea of this exhibition. So we have works by designers in conversations with visual artists. We have historical we have historical exhibits with contemporary exhibits. So in many ways, all of these hierarchies and rigid ways in which we look at definitions are being broken down through this exhibition and through the primary lens of textiles.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit, pick up one of the art that we see and we have your comment?
So we encounter here very early on into the exhibition this extraordinary site-specific work which has been conceptualized and executed by a Delhi-based artist, Sumakshi Singh, and we see here her use of a very interesting technique which looks like lace but is actually embroidery. So what she really does, so it's actually what she really does is she embroiders on dissolvable paper, on sheets of dissolvable material, and after the embroidery is done, she actually dissolves it. So you have this process of creating this very lace-like material which is actually embroidered. And I
can't believe that.
Yes, and in these works which are very ephemeral, they have a very vulnerable quality to them, there's a certain kind of transparency that they evoke. She also draws upon natural forms. These kinds of forms started emerging in the artist's work after the death of her own mother. And like in many parts of the world and in India, for her, textile became a really important medium when she started using it as a way to express the grief and the loss and questions of memory associated with this loss. So in this case, textile also becomes a memory keeper and a way of creating that connection between the artist and her late mother.